China's economy is facing serious problems that could lead to a major crisis. Right now, China has the second largest economy in the world, but it hasn't always been this way. China was founded in 1949 by the communist leader Mao Zedong, who based the country's economy on Soviet-style communism. This led to a severe famine that lasted until 1961, with estimates suggesting around 30 million people died over 2 years. Mao died in the late 1970s, and 2 years later, Deng Xiaoping became the new leader. Deng introduced major economic reforms that led to the longest period of economic growth in history. By 2003, China was under the leadership of Hu Jintao, and the country continued to experience impressive growth. In 2012, Xi Jinping took control and was initially seen as a market reformer who wanted to increase the role of free markets. However, in 2017, he began strengthening government control over the markets. In recent years, China has been hit by a series of crises. From labor market issues due to excessive COVID policies to the collapse of a booming real estate market. These problems are the result of poor political decisions, market speculation, and greed. China is heading towards a massive debt crisis. The COVID pandemic severely impacted the economy. In 2021, China saw an 8% GDP growth, but when COVID returned the next year, Xi Jinping imposed strict lockdowns, causing economic growth to drop to 3%. This COVID policy damaged many foreign businesses in China, which cut back or closed operations and laid off workers. Looking back, the pandemic was just one issue. China soon faced one of the worst real estate collapses in history. This issue started about 30 years ago when the demand for housing surged. China introduced a new model for developers, allowing them to sell apartments before they were built or even before projects started. One developer, Evergrande, borrowed money from creditors and collected advance payments from customers, used this money to build and sell properties, and then used the proceeds to pay off its debts. This business model worked well until 2021. The company was worth $86 billion and was the second largest developer in China, but it was also accumulating a lot of debt. Their obligations to Chinese banks exceeded $300 billion. The real estate market in China became a bubble, with housing prices rising rapidly and people speculating they would keep going up. Xi Jinping didn't like this. Last year, he limited how much developers could borrow, forcing them to sell assets to pay off current debts. Evergrande continued to sell its assets until 2022 but eventually went bankrupt last year. This is just one case. In total, 53 developers have gone bankrupt. China has been boosting its growth by borrowing money and making many investments. Due to Xi Jinping's new policies, companies that couldn't pay their debts to the state went bankrupt. Construction projects stopped, so people weren't interested in buying homes. To encourage investment, prices were reduced, but this led to job cuts and falling profits for companies, while their debt to the state remained high. This creates a vicious cycle. Companies can't pay their debts and go bankrupt. The problem isn't just with developers. China is experiencing deflation. Consumer prices are falling, and China has not only a large amount of official government debt but also trillions in hidden debt. Debt is a major factor driving the Chinese economy since 70% of household wealth is in real estate. The problems in this sector have hurt consumer confidence. The job market in China has worsened, with youth unemployment reaching 21%. As a result, consumers are very pessimistic about the future and prefer to save money rather than spend it. Reduced spending has led many businesses to lower prices to sell their goods, which means they earn less money. This results in lower wages and more layoffs. Deflation also increases current debt levels. In conclusion, China's economy is facing a severe crisis marked by rising debt, a collapsing real estate market, and deflation. Major developers like Evergrande have gone bankrupt due to mounting debts and tight borrowing restrictions, which have exacerbated construction halts and reduced consumer confidence. With high youth unemployment and consumers saving rather than spending, businesses are forced to cut prices and jobs. This negative cycle of reduced spending, lower profits, and increased debt threatens to deepen China's economic troubles further.